Council meeting, the ordinary meeting of Council 4499 on the 16th of August 2021. We'll start the meeting with Acknowledgement of Country. I would like to show my respect and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, of elders past, present and emerging on which this meeting takes place. The prayer, please.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have the prayer with me because I'm not in the office. Mel, do you have a copy anywhere, Andy?
I'm just seeing if I've got one.
In the documents? Sorry, councillors,
No, I don't.
I'm a little bit green with this.
What are we looking for?
The prayer.
The prayer. Are we able to find that, staff?
I'm just trying to bring it up. Sorry.
Thanks, Mel. Sorry.
Is it able to be found?
Any luck, Mel?
I believe I forwarded it on. Nick.
Oh, here we go. I'll just go to my email.
Have you got it, Maria?
Okay, thank you. Thanks, councillors.
Okay.
We thank you, Lord, for the honour of being called by our fellow citizens to this office of honour and trust. Give us grace, diligently and honourably, free from private interest or prejudice, to discharge the duties entrusted to us, to the common good and as in your sight. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Attendance and apologies. Councillor Miles is back. Yep. Everybody's present. Declarations of interest. I have one. I declare an interest, non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in 4.3. The reason being I'm a neighbour of an applicant. Are there any other declarations? If not, we now move to confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting, 4498. Councillor McLaughlin, you wish to move those? Councillor Crassoy is seconder. Is there any debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it unanimous. We now move to the first item on the business paper, which is a notice of motion 3.1. It relates to motion to refund supporting groups and waiving of fees during lockdown. Councillor Miles, you have moved.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask a question before I formally moved it, because I might withdraw the motion given the content of item 4.1. Just to the General Manager through you, I know that we charge separately for the sporting groups, particularly the lighting fees and the hire of the fields. Under the report in 4.1, are we waiving both the lighting fees and the hiring of the sports facility?
Yeah, that's correct. Everything from the 1st of July will be waived.
Yep.
So both fees.
Okay. On that advice, Mr. Mayor, I think I might withdraw that just because it's been covered in 4.1.
Okay, so that motion is formally withdrawn. Mover and seconder. Yep. We now move to 3.2, which is a motion to support business during lockdown. And that's Councillor Miles again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the motion.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Collins, you were seconding? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Miles.
Essentially, obviously, there's a lot of people that are doing it tough during the lockdown, and businesses have been particularly impacted. So the recommendations in this motion here is to create an online portal for businesses to post their services and products. This is something similar to what's been done in Lane Cove. And I think that if we could model something similar to what Lane Cove have done there, they've got a really great business portal that they've put up. Publishing of the data collected through the online survey is pretty straightforward. There was a business forum held on the 11th of the 8th last week. I think that we're planning on having another meeting this week, which I think is good to continue. And I think that that's going to be focused around mainly the state and federal relief that's available to businesses. Just putting that into some data for council and for the community to digest. Creation of a public campaign to help encourage people to shop local. I think that's a fairly straightforward thing that council should be spearheading. Communicating to commercial ratepayers that they are eligible for rates relief. I think the General Manager sent around a note earlier this afternoon, essentially outlining the relief that's available, which is not a discount to the commercial rates or the rates applicable, but it is the potential to apply for a deferral of the rates payment. I think it's important we communicate that to people as much as possible. The cost of providing a $400 rates rebate is actually something that some of our neighbouring councils are doing. I have obviously watched what some of the other councils have been providing to their business community, and this rates rebate, I think, is something that we can probably put to the next meeting of council, but it's something that we should at least identify as an option to put to the business community. I know that Ride's done something very similar, and there's been a fairly significant take up of that rates rebates that council are offering over there. So the point 4 is just to bring back a report to council to look at this rates rebate, whether or not we are going to put something to the community of that order, what it would cost, and how we could roll it out, probably in parallel with some of the state and federal funding that's available to these organisations and businesses that are impacted by the lockdown.
That's your speaking. That's yours. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any further debate? Councillor McLaughlin.
Yep, I'm totally happy to support the motion, and the motion that's come, the substantive motion that's coming a bit later on what the Manager of Placing Projects has put together. The only comment I would make is that I think it's a really good idea we have a portal and a website, but I do note that it might take a little while to get that up and running. And I'm just wondering if it's even possible to just use our social media channels, our Hunters Hill Council social media channels, a bit more widely. It could be as simple as having a Hunters Hill Council, local business Facebook page or something like that. We could promote a business a day that way. I don't know, but I'm just quite conscious that, these things take time to set up, and our social media and our existing website could be used quite effectively. And I'm sure our manager has all kinds of good ideas around how we can promote those businesses a bit more substantially in the next short time. So that would be my only comment.
Okay, Councillor Sanderson, you wish to?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was going to propose an amendment, and that would be simply that we delete item 3 from the motion.
Is there a seconder to that? For the purposes of discussion, I'll second that.
But if-
Councillor Sanderson, do you wish to speak to your
yes, if I could. Look, I do have some concern. I know it's only a matter of investigating, but I mean, the Local Government Act is very clear that you cannot provide cuts in rates. It would have to be by some other mechanism. I think, as the General Manager suggested, that would be through Section 356 of the Local Government Act. I think there is, I mean, my own family is in a situation where my partner's business has been closed for much of the time. My partner is receiving relief from government, and we're finding that perfectly adequate. So I don't know that we need to go as far as the motion proposes, and that would be my reason for deleting point 3 of the motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the amendment? Yes, Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I'll speak against the amendment. Look, it's great that Councillor Sanderson's, okay with how his business is going, but there are a lot of businesses doing tough out there. So anecdotal evidence to suggest that the government support is sufficient to help these businesses is not really it's not really the kind of evidence we should be looking at. Now, as for any legalities, that would obviously be investigated as part of this is not to enact it, it is to investigate how a $400 rebate can be given. Other neighbouring councils are doing that. I have no understanding why we would not at least look at the opportunity to providing some kind of support to our businesses, which traditionally Underhill Council hasn't necessarily given a lot of support to in the past. And it is really tough, especially in Glacefield. A lot of businesses are really doing it tough, and we're losing a lot of businesses there, and they're closing down. In the last 2 weeks, 2 businesses have closed down in GSB. We need to do everything we can, at least look at the opportunities here. So to strike it off without even looking at what we could do and how it might help and the impact it might be, that's just, I just don't think that's in the spirit of how we should be looking at this.
Yes, Councillor Miles. You want to speak?
Just briefly, in terms of the legality of the providing a rebate, our immediate neighbours are doing exactly the same thing. So I don't know why we would preclude ourselves from doing something that Ryde and Canada Bay and other councils are doing now. It's obviously allowable under the Local Government Act. This is to investigate and bring a report back to council to look at exactly how we would formulate that. But I think that it's highly appropriate that we put some form of relief, business relief, in line with the state and federal relief that's being put. So I'll be voting against the amendment.
Is there any further debate? Right reply, Councillor Sanderson.
Not required, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Declare it lost. We now move to the substantive motion. Any further debate in relation to that? Yes, Councillor Cresswell.
Thank you, Mayor. Just following on from Councillor McLaughlin's comments, because I do agree, I see a lot of other hyperlocal sites and community-driven sites that do a lot to support local businesses, particularly in Lane Cove in the Cove website, and a lot of those social media groups and so on who have business sort of threads or business profiles at the top of their pages and have a featured business a day, that sort of thing, etc. And I'm just wondering, Councillor Miles, in that point 1, the creation of an online portal for local businesses to post their services, this is a motion of council. So if we say that, then that's what we are directing our council to create, and perhaps our council officers who have better social media skills than you and I, and a tighter grasp on our website and how it might function, might have preferred to do it a more efficient and productive way. And I just wondered if you'd consider changing that first line of wording a little bit, Councillor Miles. So I'm not talking against it either.
But you're moving an amendment?
I'm I'm asking Councillor Miles if he would consider rewording that item 1. So if that's moving.
Yeah,
you need to
I'm
move an
happy to-
amendment that
yeah.
needs to be accepted. So
if you'd like to suggest an alternate, I'm happy to consider it. I'm not going to be directive to the staff. I'd prefer this to be. Obviously, they've put some thought into this already, but perhaps if you want to propose something, and I'll.
If I could ask a question through you, Mr. Mayor, I hadn't seen the email from the General Manager, so I've just pulled it up on my phone now because for some reason I'm not getting onto the council emails on my laptop. So I've just seen his response in the email that actually a lot of the things in this motion are already in action and have already been discussed with business owners, and council is operationally already doing a lot of them. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I wonder if I could ask in item 1, it says here, this is discussed with business owners and it was agreed a good idea and one that council can support. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering what that support was planning to look like before this motion came along.
Mr. Acting General Manager, could you help, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the aim was to actually provide resources to come up with the appropriate medium to circulate information for businesses out to our community using our databases, Facebook pages, all those things. So I mean, the online / or other suitable method is really what we're talking about. We're just making it, it's not concrete yet, but we'll settle it down over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, that helps me in what the amendment could look like, so that council explore opportunities to promote local business and services.
Yes, is that accepted by the mover?
No, because that's covered in point C, 1.C, that creation of a public campaign to help encourage people to shop locally and support local businesses through the pandemic.
Okay, so we'll need a seconder to the amendment.
Okay, then my amendment would, in that case, actually looking at point 3, my amendment would be to just remove point 1 if point 3 is staying anyway, because that would be covered off in the point 3, which is staying. So.
You mean 1C rather than, yes.
Yeah, one.
Not point 3 in the doc.
Yes, sorry,
okay.
1C.
Right. Just clarifying. So is there a seconder to that?
No.
Well, I'll second it for the purpose of debate. Councillor Crassod, you wish to speak to your amendment.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to say thank you to the council, to the General Manager and the council staff who have already been doing outreach to the businesses and who are already working operationally on a lot of this. And thanks to Councillor Miles for formalising what they're already doing. I just don't want to interfere operationally by being too prescriptive in this motion. And I think that point 1C, I'm looking at it on my phone from the General Manager's email instead of up here, but point 1C, which says the creation of a public campaign to help encourage people to shop locally and support local businesses through the pandemic, could and most likely would include some sort of an online opportunity. So I just don't think item 1 on there is necessary. And I do think that by leaving it on there, it makes it too prescriptive and it hamstrings what the council staff and General Manager might like to come up with. I just don't think that item 1 needs to be on there.
That's 1A.
1A, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So we know exactly what we're talking about. Is there any further debate on the amendment? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, I will look. Really, having a web presence for businesses is going to help. Is going to help those businesses. This is not a $20,000 exercise. This could be put up quite at very low cost to produce a website with funding already there. I don't know why we have to just really go over the semantics of every little aspect of these things. It's a good idea. I think businesses would be on board with it. So let's just do it. If staff come back and say, well, it's not practical, well, send us an email and then, maybe we can work out. But really, suggesting a website for businesses, local business, I think that's quite positive, and I don't think you can do any harm.
Any further debate? Right of reply, Councillor Crasso.
Thanks, Mayor Williams. Yes, I just didn't believe that motions of councils required a quick email to alter, and that's why I maintain that item 1 is too prescriptive, and that there are skills in council to run this campaign themselves. It's not semantics. Actually, it's semantics, and it's wading into operational territory to be too prescriptive and tell staff how to do their job. We have council officers who can do this, and they'll do it well, and they don't need to come back to us and say, the way you've told us to do it isn't quite working. We just need to say, we agree with what you're already trying to do. We support you. We've made it a motion of council. Go forth. This is awesome. Thank you. And we don't need to tell them how to do it. And we don't need them to come back and tell us if it can't be done. And in order to do it, that it's going to be too expensive. That's not how motions of council work, as I understood. It's a pretty simple thing to just take it off and let the staff do it the way they think it ought to be done and do it well. I'm not saying the portal shouldn't exist. I'm just saying we should leave it to the experts.
That concludes debate on the amendment, and the amendment, just for clarification, is to delete 1A in the original motion. I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's declared lost. So we move back to the original motion. Any further debate? If not, right of reply, Councillor Miles.
Only to say, I do think that the terminology creation of an online portal can be as broad as it needs to be for the staff to create something that's really user friendly. I mean, really, at the end of the day, what this is designed to do is to start sort of there are components of this motion that are separate, particularly the creation of the online portal and the potential for rates rebate and rates support that are very, very much separate from the items that are covered in the report that council officers have put together. They've done an excellent job in responding to and talking to businesses that are affected by the lockdown. But I think this motion essentially goes a step further in providing some monetary relief and just assists probably in those forums that council have already been working on, but maybe could be formalised in some way to assist businesses that are doing it tough at the moment. So I just think getting a bit of dough in there and supporting businesses as much as possible that are hurting at the moment can't be a bad thing.
That concludes debate. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move to item 3.3, which is a motion to amend the Model Code of Conduct. Councillor Collins,
We have some speakers, I think, for this motion.
Oh, we do? Okay, yes, I've got it written here in bold, speakers, so I should have noticed that. Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Our first speaker this evening is Dr. Alastair Sharp. Is he present?
It's
Yes, he
just joining
is.
now.
Dr. Sharp, are you?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, this
Oh, you're there? Okay, good.
following the YouTube.
Righto. Could you please give your presentation in relation to this matter?
Yeah, I'm just trying to turn off the sound.
Our first speaker this evening is Dr. Alastair Sharp.
Okay, that's better. Good evening. Good evening. I'm speaking against the proposed change to clause 5.9F, which reads, as a general rule, a non-pecuniary conflict of interest will be significant where it involves the conferral or loss of a personal benefit other than one conferred or lost by a member of the community or a broader class of people. And the proposed change qualifies that by saying the broader class of people must consist of at least 250 identifiable people. My mind boggles at the thought of having to identify 250 people in our tiny community. I think it's artificial to set a limit to the number of people who must be identified as affected, as possibly being affected by a decision of council. In keeping with the layman's concept of fair dealing, I understand that it's council's role to assess and act in the interests of all or part of its community and of the broader community, irrespective of how many individuals might be affected. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Are there any questions of Dr. Sharp? Councillor Collins.
Just a question, Dr. Sharp. Are you concerned with the number? I mean, would you be more happy? Would you be happier if it was 20 or 25, or could it be 1?
I'm concerned with specifying any particular number. Obviously, the number is, it's not possible to have a number that would apply in every situation. And I think the reason that, Cat just jumped on the keyboard, the reason that the model code doesn't specify a number is for exactly that reason. It would be an artificial constraint to have any number there. Okay, any further questions? If not, we'll now move to Mrs. Armstrong. Are you able to do your presentation? You're on mute at the moment, so thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. Well, there are a couple of problems with this, or a few. Threshold issue is that the section 440 of the code requires the relevant code to be that published in the Gazette on the 7th of August 2020. Is that the code we are dealing with? Is that what Council has adopted?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Next issue. The code can't be amended unless the requirements of the model code are made more onerous. This is section 440 of the Local Government Act, subsection 6. Provision of a council's adopted code is not inconsistent with the model code merely because the provision makes a requirement of the model code more onerous for persons required to observe the requirement. But that section requires council to adopt the code of conduct, and the regulations follow suit. Regulation 180. For the purposes of section 440, subsection 1 of the Act, the document entitled Model Code of Conduct, published in the Gazette in 2020, is prescribed as the Model Code of Conduct. Right, so that means we can't change this Model Code of Conduct unless it's made more onerous. Does this proposed amendment make the code more onerous? I think not. What it does is make a procedural change to make it more difficult for councillors to speak on behalf of a section of the community where that councillor stands to suffer a loss or gain a benefit. Threshold issue, which wipes out the motion, because in my view, this is not making the code more onerous. However, if you are against me on that point, it's a definitional nightmare, apart from the practical points that Dr. Sharp has pointed out, which really make it ludicrous to propose this change, practically impossible. How does it sit with the other exception, namely that the community also stands to suffer the loss or gain the benefit? Why would you have a broader class of people with a defined number where the other arm of the exception for councillors from being categorised as suffering a significant or having a significant non-pecuniary benefit does not so prescribe any number? The two would be completely inconsistent. It's a lawyer's picnic, and being a lawyer, I'm here to advise you that it doesn't work, in my respectful opinion. So drafting wise, it's got serious problems. It's in breach of section 4 of Regulation 180 of the local government regulations and of section 440 of the Act. But let's just take a practical example. Supposing the councillor lives on a street and is likely to suffer a loss or gain a benefit, depending on how you look at it, from the removal of trees.
Yep. Just one moment, Mrs. Armstrong. We just need procedural thing. Councillor Miles extended your time. Councillor McLaughlin, the seconder, put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. My apologies, but please continue.
Oh, no worries. I understand. So supposing this is a situation that we have a, say in Barons Crescent here, which everybody knows about because we've had the same issue here actually. Supposing I'm the councillor and next door they want to chop down all these trees and I'm objecting to that because I'm going to suffer a loss or gain a benefit depending on which way you construe it. Suffer a loss because of the trees or gain a benefit because the trees are chopped down and my real estate value improves or something, or whatever, however you construe it. But supposing I'm accepted from, I'm not allowed to speak in relation to that motion or that development application because I'm regarded as having that benefit, a non-pecuniary benefit, even though the whole street, the community also stands to suffer that loss or gain that benefit. Now the whole street doesn't consist of 250 people. I don't know how many people live in this street, but have I got to go out and canvass them all and sort of sign them up with stat decks to say, I hereby blah, stand to suffer a loss or gain a benefit? How does this actually work in practice if it were not for the problems of being inconsistent with the other exceptional arm and in breach of the code's provision that it should be much more onerous rather than just a procedural change? So you can see my problems with this. Number one, it's a procedural change, therefore it doesn't comply with the requirement to make the code more onerous. Number two, there are definitional problems because 250 people in the group specified is inconsistent with the unspecified concept of community. The two do not sit together. Number three, practically, it's just ridiculous. Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mrs. Armstrong? If not, thank you very much for your presentations this evening.
Very welcome.
Good. Councillor Collins, you wish to present your motion, please?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I might just start off by, to that point from Heather Armstrong about if a house next door to you is wanting to cut down trees, whether or not that moves over to a pecuniary interest or not, but let's just say it's a non-pecuniary interest. I would say that would not be something that as a councillor you should be getting involved in. I don't think by living next door to a councillor you should be prejudiced against certain proceedings that happen in the chamber. So I don't believe that a councillor in any circumstances should get involved in a motion that involves their next door neighbour. So I can say that blatantly, and this motion would actually prevent that. Now, the objective of this motion is I'm not quite sure of Dr. Sharp's concerns about the class of people being 250. The reason it's there is that ultimately we don't want this section to be relied on. Most councillors should be able to exercise a certain level of judgment to see when it would put council in an unfair light, or it would seem inappropriate for a councillor to vote on a particular matter that had a very close connection to themselves. Now, in this particular situation, as the code stands, we've got a broader class of people. Now, if I'm in this house here and the matter relates to a tree out the front of my house, well, then I can't vote on that because that's a significant non-pecuniary interest. But I've also got 4 kids and a wife, and it affects them as well. And so I can rely on this section to pretty much get out of any suggestion of a non-pecuniary interest. What this section does, this part F does, is it means that a non-pecuniary interest will never occur so long as you can find one more person that it affects. One more person. And that's the problem. And 250 is a number I made up. I wouldn't mind if it's 100 or 50. Can't be 5. I don't think that's right. I think it needs to be enough that councillors are not looking to try and figure out how do I rustle up 250 people. It's for people to say, well, I should actually be entertaining this idea in the first place. Now, we all know why this has come up. I firmly believe that a councillor needs to appear. This council, people will lose faith in the process if this council consists of councillors voting on matters that directly relate to themselves. The only thing this change does is it makes it harder to use this section. It makes it harder. But council shouldn't even be going to this because it shouldn't even come up. But effectively what we've got here, right at the end of section 5.9, is a loophole. It's a loophole that means that a non-pecuniary interest does not exist if you've got more than one person, a broader class of people, which is not defined. Now, I would imagine a lawyer might suggest that a broader class of people should be defined if you were drafting some kind of a guiding document like that. We don't have a definition, which means that one other person means that a non-pecuniary interest doesn't exist. So the simple thing about this is that it is putting more faith in the system, the process being fair and impartial. Councillors are not voting on matters that directly relate to them. And if anybody believes that councillors should be able to vote on matters directly related to them, then by all means vote against this. But this is about integrity of the code and it needs updating. It's the draft and they are doing a review and we should put that in and suggest that, this needs to be tightened up. That's all it is. And by the way, I'm happy to take, if anyone wants to suggest another number, I'm all ears.
Okay. Is there any further debate on the motion? By the way, Councillor Miles was the seconder because he was in the papers. You're still happy with that? Yep. Any further debate? Yes, Councillor Sanderson.
I had hoped to speak later on this, but if no one else is going to speak, I guess I've got to speak at this point in time. I agree with all of the points that have been raised by both Dr. Sharp and Ms. Armstrong. I've looked at this closely. One of the things that this would trigger is that as we have failed as a council to implement the code of conduct that contains the 2020 version of the model code, we would need to adopt that before such time as we to propose to amend it in any way. So that is going to trigger a much broader process as what was suggested by the General Manager. I don't know whether it's appropriate to do that at this point in time. I also agree that it is completely inappropriate to put an arbitrary number on it. It doesn't matter what the number is. There are plenty of ways it's been interpreted. My understanding of the ruling is that it is very deliberately, very deliberately doesn't set a number. In a place like Hunters Hill, it might very well be a much smaller number when you go through the process of determining that number than it would be in a larger municipality or city. That is there for the discretion of those people who determine the matter. And I believe it's absolutely appropriate that it is not an arbitrary number. To give an example, just say someone of a more development-oriented mind proposed to put some sort of development under the Lanesville Bridge in Huntley's Point, and you had a councillor down there. That councillor would be completely excluded from any say in that debate. Now, that would be completely wrong. That person would have been elected as a representative of that community, as we have all been elected as representatives of the communities, and we will know or have a better understanding of what the communities in particular areas of Huntersville would like. That was the case. Say someone from Nelson Parade had been a councillor. Should they have been excluded from that debate when they could have brought a wealth of knowledge to this council about the issues that were important at that time. A lot of the time, the people that are close to the issues will have a very broad knowledge, and it's important that they be allowed to participate in the debate. And being a class of people is certainly not going to open it up to the extent that you'll be able to do something about a tree outside your house. It will need to be, anyone would interpret a broader class of people as being perhaps all the people in the street in an instance like that. It is something that will depend on the circumstances, and no arbitrary number is going to satisfy or make sense of this. And the other issue that Dr. Sharp raised, and I think the General Manager also suggested in the notation he provided on this, that how on earth do you, in fact, or determine what that particular number is. I forget the wording the General Manager used, but I did completely agree with the notion of how difficult it is to count that number of people. I mean, you just count the number of houses and multiply it by 2.2 because you think that's the number of people that occupy that house, or that particular residence, or whatever. And I think that it is just completely unworkable. You'll find it excluding people when they clearly shouldn't be excluded. This is a small community, and I think this arbitrary change has no merit at all.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Crasoy.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. Just a question through you, please. Can you please clarify for me if a development application comes to council where council's involved, or for some reason it needs to go to the local planning panel, what's the trigger number of submissions from residents, for example, that triggers a development application being sent to a local planning panel?
I understand it's 10, but Mr.
10?
Acting General Manager, could you confirm that, please?
Director, can you answer that?
That's correct. That's above 9, which is 10. And the other answer to your question was if council owns land and have an interest, it goes to the LPP as well, the local planning panel as well.
Straight away. Thank you. I wonder, Mayor Williams, if I could propose an amendment that we do in fact change the number to 10.
You can propose an amendment. Is there a seconder to that amendment?
Mr. Mayor, may I suggest, Councillor Crasoy, would you take 25?
No. Well, Councillor
I've got 5 in my house.
Yeah, no. Councillor Collins, Councillor Crasoy is moving an amendment. Could you please say what your amendment is?
Just to change 250 to 10 adults, if that makes it easier. But I was just thinking 10.
Is there a seconder to that amendment? No, there's not. The amendment's lost. Councillor McLaughlin.
No, sorry. I'll second it for the purposes of, I'd like to hear more on what Councillor Crasoy is proposing.
Okay. Councillor Crasoy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. All I'm proposing is to try and find a way to satisfy Councillor Collins' determination to see this happen, though I completely agree with our two speakers and with Councillor Sanderson that in a little suburb like Hunters Hill, people expect you to represent them on all manner of issues, and they may happen to be on your very own doorstep. I think that when we're inducted as councillors, we're well trained, and I know Councillor Collins, you have all sorts of badges in governance, so you know about our moral duty as councillors to be able to make the right decision, and as I'm sorry, Heather Armstrong mentioned, sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought while I was trying to Google down to Heather, but I think that the thing is that Nope, it's gone. Just everything, just my whole head just went blank. So
I'd be willing
that's
to
my only
accept.
point.
I'd be willing to accept if I can, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Crasoy, instead of 10 adults, perhaps 10 from different households. I would accept that into the.
Well, we're not into brokering over amendments. We have a formal amendment
Well,
on the table.
I'm
I'm sorry,
quite-
Councillor Collins. We have an
Then I'll
amendment on the
speak to it
table.
when Councillor Crasoy.
It's fine. Yes. Councillor Crasoy, you finished your presentation.
I clearly am, because I've just
Okay.
gone blank.
Any further debate on the amendment?
Yes. I'd like
Councillor
to
Collins.
Thank you. Councillor Crasoy, I accept your change generally. I don't think it's right to probably say 10 adults. I don't think that's, but perhaps if we did 10 individuals from different households, would you be acceptable? Would you be amenable to that? That basically means that there will be some sort of defined onus to actually have a broader class of people. I'd be willing to take that, and then we can just put the matter to rest. It's a fair compromise.
Have you finished your discussion? Yep. Any further debate, Councillor McLaughlin?
I need to say that I am concerned about the issue that Ms Armstrong rose about the need to meet the threshold test. And I'm just wondering if we do need to explore that a little further before we formally adopt this. The other point I wanted to make is that the model code of conduct is developed by people who I think are trying to do the very best by what councillors should be doing, and they haven't identified it for that reason. I think it is very difficult to try and assess these kinds of numbers, and the fact that we're brokering these numbers or trying to is to me just a very strange way of changing a part of the model code of conduct, which the government has legislated so that we as councillors are responsible for deciding whether or not we have a non-pecuniary interest in a particular matter. And I am concerned about the legalities of what we're doing, but I'm also more concerned about the fact that this is a model code of conduct. We could possibly put forward if we were that concerned about it as a council, we could put forward to the review of the model code of conduct that perhaps there should be a specified number, but I really think that's up to legislators to determine. So at this point, I can't support it because I'm just not sure whether it actually is legal at this point.
Any further debate?
I have a question.
Of whom?
Of Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Because I brought this exact same motion back a bit over 3 months ago and you supported it. Have you changed your mind on this now?
Yeah.
Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, I have, because I wasn't aware of the threshold test. I hadn't looked at the threshold test that Ms Armstrong has raised, so that does cause me some concern. So I would like to I'm thinking if we want to do this, then it's better that we put it in as a submission to any changes that are made to the model code of conduct, rather than just pass this arbitrarily at this point.
Thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Any further debate on the amendment?
Can I question, Mayor? We haven't seen the amendment, the wording of it.
Well, we can put that up for you. Could the council officer please
Don't think it's
provide
been
the wording?
clarified.
The amendment, the point 1 of the motion be amended to reflect the broader class of people must be at least 10 identifiable people.
And
amendment?
Yeah, can I ask a question to Councillor Crasoy? Would you be amenable to put 10 identifiable people from different households? Would you be okay to put that in?
No, I won't, Councillor, and I'll address it in my right of reply.
Okay.
Okay, could we get back to all the councillors on the screen, please? Thank you. Councillor Crasso, you wish to speak in reply?
Well, I remember now, and I'm very sorry, I remember now why I went blank, because when I looked at Ms. Armstrong on the screen, I remembered when she was speaking, I thought, so this might not even be legal. And I looked down at her on the screen, and my whole mind just went blank. And thank you, Councillor McLaughlin, because you said exactly the right thing. So I've never had to withdraw an amendment before, but I will vote against my own amendment if I can't withdraw it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You can withdraw it with the seconder's agreement. Does the seconder agree? Yes, that's now withdrawn.
Thank you. And my apologies, everyone.
So we move back to the original motion. Is there further debate?
I'll just have right of reply.
Yes, we'll just see if anybody else wishes to speak before that. Is there any further debate? No, there's not. Councillor Collins? Councillor Collins, right of reply, please. You're on mute.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's just bedtime, so it's just going to get a little bit for a minute.
You're right of reply.
Yeah, so look, I'm sorry, but this has just been a waste of everybody's time, because Councillor McLaughlin supported the exact same motion 3 months ago. Councillor Crasso has just put in an amendment and then withdrawn it. And what we have here is just a complete and utter waste of time. I mean, all I'm doing is strengthening up the model code of conduct. We could be leaders in this area. Instead, we are just going to basically, it seems to be along some kind of political lines. It's ridiculous. So I don't want to waste anyone's time. If you councillors believe that a councillor should be able to vote on a matter that relates to parking restrictions out the front of their own house, which is ultimately how this has come about. Councillor Sanderson used an example of a tree outside your house. Well,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, what's the point of order?
Yes.
The point of order, if we have a look at 15C3 of the Code of Meeting Practice, Councillor Collins is making a point that is, if I can just find the wording, if you give me a second. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I've lost. Yeah, here it is. Yes, 1511 D, insults, makes potential reflections or imputes improper motives to any other council or officer or alleges breach of council's code of conduct. I think it comes into the second last one of those classes. So I'd ask Councillor Collins to withdraw.
I will not withdraw because I didn't accuse you of breaching the code of conduct, because you have clearly relied on a loophole to not have. So that's
Councillor Collins, it's not a loophole, so we withdraw.
No, I don't withdraw. I absolutely do not withdraw anything I've said.
Well, I don't know how we're going to proceed if you're not going to.
And the motion be put, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, okay, that's a good way of moving forward. We'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it lost. Councillor Collins and Miles were for, and the rest of the councillors were against. We now move to the next item, which is 3.4, motion to release all curb and footpath data. The General Manager, Acting General Manager, has provided some notes to the councillors in relation to that. Councillor Collins, do you wish to move your motion?
Yes, I do. And I'd like to table the General Manager's email that was sent to us today, 4:37, in its entirety, to be published in next week's business paper.
Mr. Acting General Manager, are you comfortable with that?
Councillors, we don't have a meeting next week.
Next month, whatever.
Oh, I'm all right with it. I'm sure it's circulated already.
Okay. Right, that can be done. Yes, Councillor Collins.
Okay, so yeah, so what this is about, and I suppose I will reflect on the General Manager's points here. Where are we? For the roads? Yeah, okay. Contained in 3 spreadsheets and cover 13,000 lines of information, analysed, converted. Look, it doesn't matter if you. It's not council's. It's not council's position to say, "I'm sorry, community, you don't know what to do with this data, so we're not going to give it to you."
Councillor Collins, are you frozen? Councillor Collins. I think we've lost Councillor Collins. Councillor Collins. Councillor Miles, would you be able to ring Councillor Collins and let him know that he's frozen?
I can do that, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Tobin. We'll just take a moment to see if we can get Councillor Collins back on. The problems with Zooming. No response? If not, what we might do is, if the council is so agreed, that we'll put these to later on in the meeting when hopefully Councillor Collins can return, because he's moved. Yep, and that's for 3.4, 3.5 and 3.6. Seconder, Councillor Grassley. All those in favour? Against? Declare it unanimous. So when Councillor Collins returns, we'll bring those matters forward. So that brings us now to item 4.1 on the agenda. Councillor Miles.
Move motion.
Councillor McLaughlin, second. Any discussion?
Yeah, just to say, I guess, Mr. Mayor, that the staff have done a very good job with the COVID response and the particularly lockdown response to date. Obviously, when I put the motion in, the 2 motions about providing that assistance, I hadn't seen this report, but the acting general manager and staff have done a brilliant job in moving quickly on providing this assistance package. And if you go through the report in what they're intending on continuing to do to support the community, it's really important that the council's playing a lead role in making sure that people are okay, and that our sporting and community groups are not penalised for what is a very impactful pandemic. So I'd just like to thank the staff for putting this together, and the foresight and the acting general manager in the community initiatives he's proposed here.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to that? I think that was Councillor McLaughlin. Yep. Councillor Collins, I noticed you're trying to get back in on your iPhone. If you can hear us, what has been agreed to by council is to deal with matters until you can return, and then we'll go back to the motions you're put on notice of motion. So at the moment we're dealing with 4.1. Councillor Miles has spoke to his motion. Councillor McLaughlin was the seconder. Is there any further debate? If not, write a reply, put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that unanimous. Now that Councillor Collins has been able to rejoin us, we'll go back to the point in the business paper, which is 3.4, which is dealing with a motion to release the curb and footpath data. Councillor Collins, you were speaking.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do apologise. One of my children turned off the computer, so I had to restart. Look, basically the information that I've asked to be released, I think was on three Excel spreadsheets, 13,000 lines of data. It is not, that's not a lot of data. And this is simply about making it transparent about what information council has about assets that ultimately belong to the community, not the council. If the information is too difficult for a member of the community to understand, or is beyond their skill set to make sense of it, well, that's fine. That's fine. They don't have to read it. But if a member of the community wants to delve into the data and understand how this council is managing its assets, and who knows, maybe even contribute some suggestions or understand, suggest better ways to manage things. That's the community's right. So we should not be withholding information and keeping it secret from the community simply because we don't trust what they could do with it. It is community assets. It belongs to the community. The data is there. I have no reason to believe that it couldn't be obtained under freedom of information access. But why make people go through that? Why not publish it on the website and tell everybody in the community that we're not hiding anything? That's the point of the motion. And basically making any raw data public. Yes, that's it.
Yes, Councillor Miles, you were the seconder. Yep. Any debate? If not.
Oh, okay. I can't actually see if anybody's. Oh, okay, that's great. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Put the motion.
I guess I'll have right of reply then. I assume
nobody spoke, so the right of reply.
Well, then
is
I will.
relevant.
Well, if that's the point, then I would just make the point.
Sorry, I just want.
Yes, yeah. Councillor McLaughlin.
I'm just trying to get this just right in my head before I make a decision on it. I'm wondering.
Is this a question, Councillor McLaughlin?
Yeah, I guess it is a question. It's I mean, there is the general manager, the acting general manager has said that it's just I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, to the general manager, the acting general manager.
Yep.
There will be a cost involved in this. Is it a cost that's in kind, or is it a council staff cost?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there'll be both council staff costs and costs to consultants to undertake the work. The way this worked was there was the inspections done. That was recorded through, I'm not an expert on this, but sort of longitudinal and latitudinal numbers. It was then converted into the mapping system by another company, and then they amalgamated into the 20 metre sections, I think is correct, and that's what we've published on the website to date. I'm certainly not saying that I don't trust the community with it. All I'm saying is that there's a cost, and we need to know what that cost is to get that information out, and the time it'll take staff. And the notice of motion talks about it all being done by 31st of August or the end of August. I don't think I can deliver that, and I think that's realistic. But I'm happy to get the costings and tell council what it will cost. And bring back the report, and we can do it. But it's not as simple as just converting this data. There's a lot of work involved in it, and we've got to make sure that the consultants have got the time to do it as well.
Thank you. So to answer your question, Councillor McLaughlin, yes.
Yes. So I guess I would then be suggesting a couple of amendments along those lines, that perhaps. That a report be brought back to council on the cost and time frame to be prepared to prepare this data, and then when we've looked at that, we can assess whether or not it should be, whether we can go ahead with it, given that it could be a substantial cost. We just don't know at this point. Okay, is there any further debate?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, is that a foreshadowed motion, Councillor McLaughlin?
Good point. Is that, are you?
It is a foreshadowed motion at this point. I just haven't got the wording for it yet exactly.
Happy to second that.
Yeah.
Right. Any further debate? We have a foreshadowed motion. If not, Councillor Collins, right of reply. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to get back on through the computer. What I've asked for here is raw data. It doesn't have to be prepared, and it doesn't have to be in any form other than what council already has. So it's actually, it's quite misleading to suggest that it's a significant amount of cost, because all it involves is getting the data, the tables that council has in its possession, not interfering with it, not making it look pretty, not explaining it, just publishing it. Then anybody that knows what to do with the data can do as they wish. So even if there is a cost to being transparent and not being secretive around our assets, then that is a cost we should wear. But there is no cost, because all I'm asking is for raw data. We have the raw data. It is probably stored on a folder on the council's intranet. It is simply a matter of uploading it. So I find it a bit of here we go. Oops. Got it. Okay, I'm back. So I apologize for that. It is to suggest that it's a significant amount of cost is simply not true, because I've not asked for a report to be prepared, which would cost.
Councillor Collins, you can't say what the General Manager is saying is untrue. That is his opinion.
What is the cost? Sorry, can I ask a question of the General Manager through you, Mr. Mayor? What is the cost to upload raw data spreadsheets in council's possession to the website?
To update the information as it is, there's no real cost.
No cost.
But no one's going to understand it, Councillor Collins.
It doesn't matter. That's not what I'm asking for.
It'll then require people to answer questions of people who want information.
People that want to know about assets.
Yeah, and that will cost
council's
assets. Cost us time and money.
Councillor Collins.
Okay, well, if that's the case, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that if people have questions about our assets, please ask them. That is what we are here for, and they are entitled to know. Now, we've just learned that it is of very little cost to upload the raw data as I've put in this motion. The only reason that this would be denied tonight is if councillors want to continue covering up and hiding the truth about our assets, and don't believe that the community deserve to know the state of our assets. It is raw data. That's all. It costs nothing. It's easy to do. It could be done in an hour, okay, if there was the will. So there is plenty of time to do it. And any council that wants to maintain secrecy around our asset data, which has been the way for decades until recently when I managed to get published the 20-metre interval map, which I struggled to even get my hands on after I accidentally saw it at a briefing. Now that's out there. Let's get the raw data out there. Let's start being honest with the community about the state of our assets instead of denying it. So I strongly encourage all councillors to support transparency and open governance, because, as I've often said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So let's just put the sunlight on this, and so people can know exactly what's going on. I've seen it. The community need to see it.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. That concludes the debate. We have a foreshadowed motion. I put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it lost. Councillor McLaughlin, you have a foreshadowed motion. Could you unmute, please? Councillor McLaughlin, unmute, please. Thank you.
That a report be brought back to council on the cost and time frame to release all raw data collected on the footpath, roads and curb network during the most recent asset review.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Crassoy. Any debate? You wish to speak to your motion, Councillor McLaughlin?
Only to say that there is absolutely no intention by anyone to be secretive about this information. I think what we are trying to achieve is in terms of transparency, is to be able to provide the community with data that makes sense rather than just numbers and figures and gobbledygook, effectively. I think it's if we are going to be transparent, we need to be able to provide some information that is relevant or is readable as well. And so while, you know, we can just upload things to our website willy-nilly, I think it would be more sensible that there was some identifiable data for the public to be able to look at. But there's absolutely no secrecy involved in this. I think we all want to achieve the public getting as much information as they can. It's just a matter of how it is presented to them.
Thank you. Is there any further debate? Councillor Sanderson.
Thanks. Unless anyone wants to speak against, but I'll support all that Councillor McLaughlin has just spoken about. I think it's important that the information we have is in a readable form, and I think from the descriptions I've heard, what the original motion was proposing wouldn't be particularly helpful to the vast majority of people. So I do strongly support Councillor McLaughlin's foreshadowed motion.
Well, it is now the motion. Any further debate? Councillor Collins.
First of all, a question through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. What would cost more than simply uploading the raw data or producing a report about uploading the raw data?
Mr. Acting General Manager.
I mean, what will this report cost? What's it going to take when ultimately we're going to upload the raw data? Because I'm not really sure what Councillor McLaughlin's suggestion is. Are we getting a cost on what it would be to upload the data and then report on it? What?
I think,
okay, Mr. Acting General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I heard Councillor McLaughlin talk about uploading the data in a form that's understandable. So we'll be doing a report on that basis. So there's a cost to do both. The cost of the report, you know, we'll have to a couple of hours, make some phone calls, get some quotes. You know, the cost of uploading, yeah, in the first instance, probably a couple of hours as well, but you know, just depending on how we do it, we've got to protect the data. So yeah, it's probably pretty similar.
So what are the quotes? What quotes you say?
Well, the quotes to convert this data into something that people know exactly where it is. All at the moment is a series of numbers on a page. It doesn't tell you anything, Councillor. And that's all I'm trying to do is if we're going to put stuff up onto the website, I want the community to be able to see it and understand it. And no one will understand this data as it is in its current form.
I've got segment data. I've got segment data information.
But Councillor Collins, what is the question?
Well,
that's been uploaded, hasn't it?
Sorry?
That's been uploaded.
Let's stick to the debate. Councillor Collins and Mr. General Manager, let's stick to the rules of debate. Okay, question of the General Manager through you, Mr. Mayor. Are you saying that the raw footpath data has no identifiable data, is hashtag, officially hashed? So there's no way to actually see that it refers to a particular street?
Correct.
Right. Well, I've got information that's not that way. That's not a question, Councillor Collins. We're in a debating process.
Unbelievable.
Is there any further debate in relation to the motion?
I will debate this. What we could do is we could just release the information, and then as a secondary, no one's even seen it, right? And then all of a sudden we're told, oh, well, you won't understand it, so don't worry about it. I mean, this is simply about making data public. Now, if you can't understand it, then surely there will be a process where it can be made sense of. But to even deny it being released and made public before having even seen it because you've been told you won't understand it is ridiculous. This is secrecy, and it is covering up the truth of our assets. It's ridiculous. put it off to another report, another month. Then we'll get a report saying it'll take 3 months to do it, and then it'll never happen. So all I'm saying, make it public, shine light on it, and this is ridiculous. I'll support it because some movement towards transparency at this council is going to be better than none. But my motion originally, as it stood, would have been transparent and made everything public as it should be. These assets belong to community, not the council.
Any further debate? Councillor Crasoy.
Thank you, Mayor Williams. Just a question through you. Is this information currently available under Freedom of Information? Can it be made available immediately under Freedom of Information?
Mr. Acting General Manager.
Ooh, I'd probably need some advice from the governance officer on that, but and that she'd have to review it. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be. It's not nothing's secret. It's just not readable in the format it is. That's all. I mean, that's, I say, if you're going to put data up, we might as well make it. We need to make it so people can understand it.
Thank you. In which case, Mr. Mayor, I'll just briefly speak in support of Councillor McLaughlin. The information for anyone who does want it and want to look at it in the format that it's currently in, they can apply to do so under Freedom of Information right now. The purpose of this report will be to help us as councillors decide whether making the raw, well, not the raw data, but the interpretable data available on our website, whether the cost of doing that for the benefit of the people who do want to look at it, who will be very few, whether it's worth that cost or whether it's worth it just being available to people who want it through Freedom of Information. And that's why it's important that we do get a report. And if we do get it at the next council meeting, that's only a month away. And in the meantime, anyone who wants it sooner can request it through Freedom of Information. So I don't see any reason to not support waiting for a report from the General Manager. And I apologise, General Manager, for requesting a report, but it's going to be the way we can make the best decision.
Any further discussion? Right of reply, Councillor McLaughlin.
Only again, just to reiterate that we have no intention of hiding anything from the public. What we're trying to achieve here is absolutely addressing the spirit of Councillor Collins's motion, and that is to provide this data to the public in a way that is readable and understandable and makes sense. So there is absolutely no intention to deny the public any of this, but I think we need to be able to have something in our possession that is understandable, and that is all we're trying to achieve here. It's not realistic to be able to provide this by the end of August, and with everything that is going on in our world at the moment, this is something that staff can take on board and put into a report, and it can be provided in a time frame that hopefully will work with the way that council is dealing with a whole lot of other issues at the moment. So that is simply all we are trying to achieve here. It is addressing the spirit of Councillor Collins's motion, and I commend it, the foreshadowed motion, to council.
That closes debate. I'll now put the motion as it stands. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. We now move to the next item, which is 3.5, motion to produce modelling on asset renewal. Councillor Collins, you move this, and Councillor
Yes.
Miles, are you seconding still? Yes, okay.
So basically, this is probably the motion to follow. They could probably almost be moved together. I won't. But what this is simply about is to produce a model to show the public how bringing forward maintenance on our assets can reduce our overall maintenance costs over time. Now, I have been a strong proponent of bringing forward our asset renewal program, whether funding it by lending at low rates T Corp, because I believe if we catch up the backlog, then we don't waste money on maintaining assets that are significantly degraded. That position has been supported by the consultants who have come up with a suggestion of how to manage our asset renewal over time to spread it out over 10 years. But what we're missing out on, and when we were at our briefing like a couple of weeks ago, we haven't been shown as councillors the difference in costs it would be if we were to a 10-year period, if we were to bring everything forward, get everything done as quickly as possible, whether or not that's physically viable to do it, whether it maybe takes 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. But in the past, we have never, in our 10-year forward estimates, we've never provisioned for renewal and complete maintenance up to a satisfactory standard of all our assets. And that's what the motion after will follow. So I'll probably go into more of it there, but this one is simply modelling, which is important to do. And bear in mind, and I know some will say, well, that'll be part of the consultation about this rate increase that councils have been cooking in the background. But when we had our briefing last week, the modelling wasn't there. The modelling wasn't there, and I haven't seen a difference in the cost. We've been told it could be a 25% saving, and if the manager of governance or general manager wants to chime in on this, I'm quite happy to invite them to correct me. But quite frankly, we have not seen this, and I've suggested 2 years ago to bring forward our asset renewal program. It was denied, and that's why I'm bringing this motion back after. But this will simply make the case for the next motion. So simple modelling to show the community that if we bring forward our spending, we can save money in the long term. It's a very good asset management strategy this council hasn't done before. So I commend the motion.
Is there any further discussion or debate? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have great concerns with it. I don't want to debate it at the moment. I'll come into the debate later on. What I'd like to do is foreshadow.
No, this is your chance to speak on the motion.
No, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I started the wrong way. I'd just simply like to foreshadow an alternate motion.
Yes. Could you foreshadow it, please?
Yes, it is the motion that the General Manager circulated earlier this afternoon, and that is that the General Manager bring back a report on agreed service levels for maintaining council's infrastructure as part of the report on the special variation consultation, and in the interim hold a councillor workshop to finalise agreed service levels.
Okay, so that's foreshadowed, Councillor McLaughlin.
Which motion are we referring to here?
We're referring to 3.5, which is the Huntersville Council produce and make public modelling to demonstrate how bringing forward all asset renewal programs affects future maintenance costs over the next 10 years is the motion before us, and Councillor Sanderson has moved.
I'll withdraw the.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think Councillor Sanderson's.
Yeah, I'll withdraw it.
Okay, that's withdrawn.
Yep.
Councillor Miles.
Sorry, question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sanderson. You referred to a motion that had been circulated from the General Manager about this issue. I haven't had access to that. Where was that tabled?
If I could answer, Mr. Mayor, it was I received it, I don't know, it was sometime before 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Councillors, it's the same email, Councillor Miles, that you referred to for your notice of motion. It's just further down the document.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Fair enough. No. I just haven't got it in front of me. So
yeah, it was circulated to all councillors this afternoon. Okay. The foreshadowed motion has been withdrawn, so we're dealing with the substantive. Councillor Miles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak in favour of the motion briefly. Just in relation to modelling out the maintenance backlog and potentially addressing it with funds from T Corp. Councillor Collins and I discussed this with T Corp some 3 or so years ago, and it was inferred, although it's not concrete, that they'd be very happy to lend council the money to the tune of what it would take to deal with its backlog, and that deterioration that occurs, which we've all had briefings on as councillors, that's quite expensive at a point. Could be addressed with very cheap money, which is made available to council through T Corp. I think it's a worthwhile exercise doing, and I think that running in parallel with what's going to have to be a fairly hard conversation about rates and the year-on-year deficits that we're projected to run, I think it would be a worthwhile exercise, just given that we do have other options rather than the 17.5% permanent rate increase. I'm not saying that we're not going to have to increase rates at some level, but I think that exploring these options is sensible, given the process that we're going to have to undertake in the coming months. I think that having these alternative options in place, or at least having a discussion around them, would be a sensible course of action, especially given the access council has to very cheap borrowing through T Corp loans. So I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have, especially given what's going to have to be discussed in the coming months.
Any further debate for or against? Councillor Crassley.
Mayor Williams, I'll speak against it. At the briefing last week, we talked about so much that's on the table over the coming months, and we just have these extra few months of council, and it's an opportunity for us as councillors to get more done, and for the council operationally to get more done. At the briefing we had last week, the General Manager told us that he would be doing this modelling and he would be bringing it to us in the reporting around the ending and starting of special rate variations, and that would be coming to us in October. So this is happening operationally anyway, and this motion just clutters it up really. So while I support the modelling and having all the information available to us, and I support exploring further with T Corp so that we can knock some of our asset renewal work over. The General Manager told us at the briefing last week that he was working on this. Now, maybe some councillors were out of the room or weren't in attendance, but I remember hearing it. And so I just don't think this motion's necessary. I think it just clutters things up and puts more work on the General Manager's desk that he doesn't need at the moment. That's not to say it shouldn't be done, but it is being done. Doesn't need a motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crassley. Any further debate? Right of reply, Councillor Collins.
I might just speak to that, because what Councillor Crassley is suggesting, because it's completely wrong. Now, the General Manager's email that came at, 20 to 5 this afternoon, about this asset, about this modelling. It said this modelling was discussed at last week's workshop, and the Acting General Manager advised that this proposal would be analysed and reported to Council in October as part of the special rate variation consultation and reporting. Now, what I'm suggesting here, and what I suggested at that meeting, and the reason why we don't have this modelling, is because it hasn't been done. I suggested it last week. Oh, do we have it? Do we have the modelling? Anyone? Okay.
Councillors, we don't have that modelling.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just getting some strange looks, that's all. I would suggest that this should not be done as part of the consultation. Now, we had a meeting last week telling us that council are cooking up a 17% rate increase or whatever it is, right? And I'm saying that we actually don't need it if we are a little bit smarter about the way we manage our expenditure on asset renewal. Now, I'm making a suggestion here. We were told at that meeting that over the course of 10 years, we could save $6 million on asset maintenance over 10 years if once everything's caught up. We'd save $6 million if we use the special rate variation to fund this. Now, I was not able to get an answer about how that curve, whether it's same amount every year, but I would imagine over time the saving would be higher. So the faster you get this work done, the less you have to spend on maintenance. Now, by that logic, this modelling is not a way to explain why we need to increase rates. This is an alternative mechanism to get the work done that needs to be done without increasing rates. So there is absolutely no way that this modelling should be part of the special rate variation consultation, because basically by then the decision's already made. Now, I'm saying that if we borrow money from TCorp at these historically low rates and bring forward all our asset maintenance, it's quite possible that we have a better return than if we do a special rate variation and spread the work over a longer period of time. Or maybe the rates need to increase less. But we don't have that information because it hasn't been given for us, because the easier option when it comes to managing council assets and council spending, the easiest option is to increase rates. Anyone can do that. Anyone can do that. It's not really intuitive. And if there are other options out there, we should look at them. So what I'm suggesting here is a way that we could potentially not need an increase in income because we're going to save. Or maybe we won't. But this is not part of a rates increase consultation. This is an alternative way. I'm suggesting an alternative to increasing rates. Surely councillors would support looking at an alternative to increasing rates. Or do we just not want to look at it? Goodness. I cannot understand why anyone would not even want to look at an alternative to rate increases. That's ridiculous. That's negligent. So I commend the motion because I'd like to look at options to not increase rates. And this is one of them.
Okay, that concludes the debate. I now put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it lost. We now move to item 3.6, which is motion to address the maintenance backlog. Councillor Collins, do you wish to move that motion formally? And
yes, I will move it and I'll speak to it, even though I know that that there is
Miles, do you wish to second it? Yep. Okay, Councillor Collins.
There is clearly an inclination for people to vote against things simply because I'm the one bringing it. Maybe I should encourage somebody else. This is happening again. It's ridiculous. Now, this motion here is to address the maintenance backlog. It is
Councillor McLaughlin,
Order.
yes.
I just voted with you, Councillor Collins, on an issue.
I wasn't suggesting it was you, Councillor McLaughlin.
Further point of order, Mr. Mayor. I think
yes.
Councillor Collins is making assertions about his fellow councillors in his deranged paranoia, but it's inappropriate.
Excuse me, a point of order, Mayor.
No, we're dealing with a point of order at the moment, Councillor Collins. You can't layer another one on top of that. Yes, Councillor Collins, stick to the issue at hand. There's no need to bring councillors into the issue. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Crassoy should withdraw that comment. Calling me deranged is so wrong on so many levels. That is so inappropriate. And
yes, Councillor Crassoy, do you wish to reflect on that?
Would you like me to withdraw the comment about
I think that's
Collins' paranoia?
Fair. Yeah.
All right. as long as Councillor Collins can withhold his comments about his opinions about how councillors of governance under a meeting code of practice and a code of conduct make our decisions.
Yes, thank you.
No, I won't. I don't withdraw that comment. I don't withdraw that comment because it was simply reflecting on a pattern of behaviour. I did not suggest anybody was deranged or paranoid.
Well, your fellow,
well, I was reflecting that you're paranoid for doing it.
Yeah, no, your fellow councillors don't agree with you, Councillor Collins. Could you please proceed with your discussion?
So, Mr. Mayor, just so I can reflect on that, you're suggesting it's okay for a councillor to call another councillor deranged and paranoid. Is that?
No,
I withdrew it. You're the one saying it now.
Councillor Collins, that was withdrawn by Councillor Crassoy.
It wasn't. It was conditionally withdrawn based on me withdrawing what I said, and I don't.
Well, I ask you similarly in the spirit of moving on in this meeting to withdraw your comments so that we can all get on with it.
Councillor Crassoy, I believe she was talking to you.
No, I'm talking to you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Crassoy has already withdrawn her statement. I'm asking you, in the spirit of moving forward, to do likewise.
No, I'm not because I've got no basis for the decision making here, and I'm allowed.
Mr. Mayor, I withdrew my comment about deranged paranoia.
Yes,
okay.
I raised a point of order about. I'm just
going to get on with it. I'm just going to talk.
No, Mr. Mayor, I raised a point of order which hasn't been addressed. I think if you follow the meeting code of conduct, I raised a point of order.
That's right.
Councillor Collins was making assertions.
I'm not withdrawing it.
Put it to the
I'm
vote.
not withdrawing it. It wasn't a personal attack. It was a.
You want to put the motion? You're putting the motion, Councillor Crassoy.
No, the point of order that Councillor Collins made assertions about the way his fellow councillors vote. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we'll put that. Is there a seconder to that?
Oh, well, of course they're going to. That's ridiculous. You've got to make a decision on that. So anyway,
well, I have made a decision. I want you to withdraw it, Councillor Collins.
I'm not going to withdraw it.
Well, if you're not going to withdraw it, then
what?
Even if council makes that decision, you're not going to withdraw it.
No, I'm not. Because I believe I have not offended him. I've not made a personal attack.
That's your belief, but other councillors disagree.
Let me just get on with it. Let's just do
it. There's a point of order. Okay, I think it's courtesy to behave appropriately and to reflect on what you've said.
I've reflected. I'm not withdrawing the comment. There's a pattern of voting behaviour that is clearly along this block. Now, I'm not going to withdraw that comment or that observation. It wasn't a personal attack. I didn't make any personal attacks. It was an observation about a voting pattern.
Other people have taken it as such.
Fine.
And I think
they're just going to have to deal with it.
I won't deal with it, Mr. Mayor. It's a suggestion of caucusing. A pattern of behaviour with councillors voting as a block is a suggestion of caucusing. That is what you're talking about, Councillor Collins. I'd like it withdrawn.
I'm not withdrawing what I said because I did not suggest anyone had caucused.
That's exactly what you're saying. You're saying we're voting as a block against you.
You don't understand what caucusing is.
Please. Could you please refrain, both of you? If we're in the room together, I'd probably have to stand up and you'd have to come to order.
Let's just get on with the meeting.
No, well, we can't because you're not prepared to withdraw.
Oh, I'm not.
Right, okay. Mr. Acting General Manager, what's the process forward, please?
I need to read the Code of Meeting Practice, Mr. Mayor. I recall from the last meeting, I'll just be honest, Mr. Mayor, I think everyone should just withdraw and get on with it. I mean, I hear everyone saying, but
all right, let's get on with it.
We're here to try and get on with some points, and you know, there's still someone waiting in the room to talk on another item, and yeah, I think we're arguing about things that don't need to be argued about.
Okay, I agree. Can we just get on with it?
No, you need to withdraw.
I'm not withdrawing the comment because all I said was there's a pattern of voting behaviour that is clearly voting against everything I put up there. That's all I've suggested.
Well, I'm sorry, we disagree. I disagree with that, and I'm the chairperson, and you're required to withdraw.
So make your ruling.
I have made my ruling, Councillor Collins, to withdraw that.
I'm not obliged to comply with your order. I made a comment, and it is not out of order to make that
I'm
comment.
sorry, I'm the chairperson. A point of order has been raised against you, and I agree with that point of order. And you're now just frustrating the meeting in not willing to comply.
Mr. Mayor, ever since every motion I've brought up here has had
I'm
people
not
vote against it for
interested
a
in
simple-
that, Councillor Collins.
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
interested.
I'm not withdrawing the point. I'm not withdrawing it. I'm not going to withdraw the point. Okay, let's get on with the meeting.
No,
Agree,
we can't
disagree,
get on
and
with the
move on.
meeting. We'll have to work out how we deal with this.
You can make an order, right? All you can do is you can, yeah. I mean, you're the chair, Mayor, but really,
Well, I
just
am,
wanna
and
get
I've
on with
made
it.
my decision, and normally councillors would comply with that.
I cannot comply to withdraw a statement that I believe in, and I do not believe it was out of order. It's an observation, and it is my right to speak. I did not make a personal attack. I did not insinuate any sort of unethical or any conduct that was illegal. I simply made an observation that if I bring a motion,
Yeah,
to
but
council,
we're not
there are
going
two
to
people
debate
voting
what you said and what you didn't
right.
say. The issue is whether or not you're going to comply with the direction
I'm
of
not
the
going to.
chairperson.
No.
Mr. Acting General Manager,
I'm just getting it up now.
what
Mr.
options do we have here?
Give me a second. I'll just get to page 41.
Maybe we could defer it till you know what you can do about it. Maybe the next meeting, bring it up.
No. What, your
Councillors,
motion?
I'm just wondering whether we could move to the item on the parks, Mr. Mayor, while I look at this and come back and then
Sure.
deal with this item. Give me a couple of minutes. Just to
Yeah,
get the-
Councillor Miles has moved that we defer until we've dealt with, until we've got further advice. And we now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is there a seconder to that?
I'll move I'm moving an alternative motion, Mayor, to that.
No, I've already got a motion on the table from Councillor Miles and Councillor Sanderson. Do you wish to?
Mr. Mayor, I moved that we move to the item on parks as suggested by the General Manager.
Yes, that's right.
I second that motion.
Yeah, we've already got a second, Councillor Sanderson.
Okay, and then
Now,
actually
is there
move the
any
motion.
debate on that? There's not.
No, wait on, Mr. Mayor. I moved that we change the order of business. I didn't move the motion.
Well, that's right. Changing the order of business is
Yeah.
moving a
Yeah.
motion.
Yeah.
You can only do that by moving a motion. And we've got a seconder to that. So I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. So we
I'd
now
like to move an alternative motion, Mayor.
to what? There's no motion on the table.
Yes, the parts. But we've got a speaker. Oh, we've got a speaker first. Okay.
So we move to what item is 4.2? 4.6. Okay. We'll move to there. So we've got some speakers. I'd like to welcome Mrs. Oakman to the meeting, and we have a second speaker, Mrs. Browning. So Mrs. Oakman, would you like to give your presentation, please?
You're still joining, sorry.
Okay. Welcome, Mrs. Oakman. Sorry for the wait. We're now dealing with that item that you wish to address council for. So could you please do that? There's a time limit of 3 minutes. If you exceed that, we'll have to procedurally give you an extension. So please excuse us if we interrupt.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes, thank you.
You can hear me. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I just, as one of many parents in Hunters Hill, a number of us wanted to approach council in the hope that you could look at upgrading Wheel Park, in particular the playground. Sorry, I'm going back through my notes. So basically, we're all encouraged to get outdoors and be active. And with many families and grandchildren living and visiting the Hunters Hill area, this would definitely be a welcome addition to our beautiful green spaces. Wheel Park is used by an abundance of children and adults who participate in soccer training, which is a big one. There's a lot of people that come into Hunters Hill for soccer games as well. Play dates, school groups, outdoor family time, and other sporting activities. This is a well-used and treasured oval, but the playground and the facilities are a real letdown. The play equipment is very dirty most of the time, as the base is just dirt and wood chips. It gets quite windy at Wheel Park, as I'm sure you know, and everyone gets covered in dirt and the dust blows around. It's a bit of a dust bowl. There's a real dip underneath the swing, and I know the swing was revised or replaced not so long ago, but the dip under the swing is so deep that it's actually hard for the kids to get on the swing because the dust keeps sort of blowing around. The sun protection hasn't been replaced, and there's, I don't know what you call it, but there's like a flying fox sort of zip thing that the kids can go across, but it's so high that most of the kids can't actually get up onto it, and they're climbing up the pole and then clambering across to get hold of it because it's so high. So basically, we're just requesting that a few additions be made to the playground, or upgrades be made, I should say. Recycled rubber matting would be a huge benefit to that playground, laid down in place of the dirt and the wood chips. An upgrade be made to the existing playground equipment. A netball hoop was discussed, but I believe this has now been installed. A scooter bike path be installed around the outer edge of the oval with a small, what they call a pump track. Council often leaves a mound or two of dirt on the eastern edge of the oval, which children as young as 2 get on their bikes and ride over, which they absolutely love doing. And I've seen dads in their 60s doing it as well. So just if there's any chance of council upgrading Wheel Park, it would be very much appreciated by the local community. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Excuse me. Are there any questions of Mrs. Open? If not, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'd now like to invite Mrs. Brownie. Is Mrs. Brownie online?
No, I'm reading it.
Oh, you're reading it. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
So Mrs. Brownie says, it's great that Wheel Park has entered into discussion. Personally, as a resident, I think Wheel Park definitely needs an upgrade. It is sandy and dirty, and the kids are bored and dirty in no time. I think at a minimum, it needs soft surface, shade cloth, areas of playground for all ages to 10 to 12, water filter, recycling bins, areas for bikes to be currently parked on the grass and falling over, covered picnic tables like at Buffalo and Boronia, basic landscaping. We do love the rustic nature of Wheel Park and the casual neighbourhood feel that limits the cars to the area except on game days, and how the bush surrounds the oval. Thank you for your efforts. Best regards, Roe Browning.
Thank you very much. There's no possibility of questions. So that now brings us to the Councillor Crassoy.
I was just going to put the motion, Mr. Mayor.
My hand was up first, Mayor.
No, Councillor Crassoy's got the floor. Councillor Sanderson, you seconded it.
I was up first, Mayor.
I don't mind if Councillor, no, actually you're right. Councillor Collins raised it before the speaker spoke. So if he wants to have the motion, he's fine. I just have a question though. So I don't mind. Councillor Collins can have it.
Okay. Thank you. I will move an alternative motion. And the alternative motion is yes, that report be received and noted, 1, and 2, the council uses funds from the basically where I'm going with this is do both. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of the track around the Wheel Park. We don't need to take it away from another playground. We should be upgrading all the playgrounds. So I'd like to fund it via the community initiatives and minor capital works internally restricted accounts. Is that to the general manager, through the mayor? Can that be funded out of that, the $20,000?
What was the fund, councillor, sorry?
It's community initiatives and minor capital works in our internal restrictions. I believe that was for our ward funds. Is that right?
I'd have to ask the director to respond to that. I'm not certain.
Yes, for the benefit of the general manager, who was obviously not there at the time. Initially, the report that went to council was a proposal for award funding. However, that got resolved not to be award funding, but to be a community initiatives and minor capital works with a 20,000 balance each year. So last year, the 20,000 was expended, and this financial year within the long-term financial plan, that is still there.
Fantastic. So $20,000, like to fund 20,000 from there. And for the other 10,000, is the cost going to be 30,000? So can I ask the general manager, do we have a costing of what this project will cost at Will Park?
Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we were going to spend $30,000 on as much as we possibly could there. We certainly won't, $30,000 won't upgrade the park as per the speaker's request tonight. That'll need to be budgeted, but it was more trying to get just a general upgrade, as I say, as much as we possibly do with $30,000.
Do we have an idea what it would cost to do all those? Are we talking about 100,000 or?
I'll ask the manager of place and Ms. Home.
Yeah, it'd be about 150.
150. Okay. All right. Well, for the sake of tonight, I would move that we fund $20,000 from community initiatives and other capital works. Can I just confirm with the also in the budget we have $50,000 allocated to the Riverglade Reserve Playground. Is that the new play space?
Mr. Acting General Manager.
I'm looking at the budget now.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Is that the final instalment or something, is it?
Ms. Ho?
I understand there was a number of different line items that came over to make the full sum for the project.
Okay.
That's all for the project adding up.
All right. What about what about the now I understand with the Croquet Club that we've got $4.75 million to spend in that area. Now we've got in the budget $23,000 for a new kitchen in the Croquet Club. Could we fund that kitchen out of the new grant and then move that $23,000 over to Will Park?
No, councillors. The grant is only to be used inside the park area itself.
Sorry,
the grant is only to be used for inside the park itself, not on any buildings that are on Gladesville Road. That's the condition of the grant.
Okay, is it still intended to go through with that kitchen upgrade?
But that's for a discussion once we've signed off on the concept plan for the park and the long-term location of the Croquet Club itself. If it stays there, then it will have to get upgraded. Okay, well, considering it's unlikely that they will get a, I'll put it this way, I would rather upgrade a playground than a kitchen. So for the sake of this, I will propose that we move the $23,000 from the kitchen fit out from the Croquet Club and defer that to the next financial year until further funds can be obtained for that. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be happening in this financial year, but for the sake of this motion, so that we can get this playground upgraded as soon as possible, I want to move $20,000 from the community initiatives minor works. That's part two, and $23,430 from the kitchen fit out of the Croquet Club to the playground at Will Park. So that actually gives $40,000. So you do a little bit more.
Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Miles. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Collins?
Look, just briefly, I think when this budget was being prepared, a lot's obviously changed. And I think these play spaces are probably more important than ever. I love Will Park and I love all the parks and playgrounds. So I think we should be, I would like to see us bring forward as many of these as possible. I wouldn't support, I think it's a bit rough to take money. We're going to take money from somewhere else in the budget for a park. We don't need to take it from another park. plenty of places we can take it from, so I'm really supportive of upgrading Will Park, and I really want to find a way to get that scooter track around Will Park. So I can't find $100,000 just looking at now, but I will, try and come up with something so that can happen, because I think, these outdoor spaces are so important now, and we need to do as much as we can to promote them. So I commend the motion and look forward to seeing both parks getting upgraded as soon as possible.
Councillor Cresswell.
Thanks, Mayor Williams. Just a question that I had at the start was, if this money from Harding Memorial is transferred across to Will Park, when would Harding Memorial's upgrade next be budgeted in? I don't think that's written in the report.
Just Acting General Manager, can you assist?
Ms. Hart?
Yeah, so at this stage, and I don't believe Harding Memorial needs an upgrade. It's not a heavily used playground and it doesn't have any major requirements. It's not high on the list of projects that require it. I think it would be within the next 4 years though. So before the next playground strategy is updated.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Cresswell.
Yeah, I'll speak against Councillor Collins. I'll just put an amendment straight up, that the report be received and noted that Council approve the reprioritisation of the play space upgrade funding from Harding Memorial to Wheel Park Play Space, and that we also allocate the $20,000 project funding towards the Wheel Park Play Space, giving a total of $50,000 for some staged upgrades.
Okay, so that's an amendment?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a seconder to that amendment?
Just for the point of debate, but what about the other $23,000 that Councillor Collins is referring to? Sorry, that's a question, Councillor Cresswell, through you, Mr. Mayor.
If you're happy to second for the sake of the debate, I'll
yes, that's a good point. Do you wish to second the motion so that we
I do wish to second the motion.
The amendment.
The amendment.
Okay, there's a question.
I would also just suggest that we might include that $23,000 as well. But let's see.
Is that the question to Councillor Cresswell? Yes, Councillor Cresswell.
I'll speak to it first, I think,
okay.
and then I'll hear the debate. I think.
Yep, sure. Councillor Cresswell, you wish to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Mayor Williams. I think that $50,000 is a really good start to do a stage of upgrade, a good stage of upgrade for Wheel Park, who has, as we recently heard, already received a netball hoop down there. I think we could get some good foundation work done down there. I think that the rest of it, pulling up the spreadsheets on our computer screens while we rattle off numbers in the middle of a council meeting, it's I know I say it too often, but it's policy on the fly. And this is the reason we have briefings. It's the reason we do long-term budgets and discuss things. We could make this decision tonight, and next week the croquet club could say, but we really needed that kitchen and that's why it was in the budget for this year. Or the many children who approached council a couple of years ago about a pump track at Baronia Park could say, but we're already in line for a pump track, so why is our pump track not a priority anymore? And so we have to be careful about making decisions here and now tonight about money that's in the budget allocated to other places. The report has suggested the Harding Memorial funding go across there. I believe Harding Memorial Park will be well and truly ready for an upgrade before 4 years, but I do agree that I think it's okay for a little bit longer. And I agree that Wheel Park would really benefit from something now. So I think Councillor Collins' suggestion of taking that extra 20,000 is a great idea, which gives us 50,000, which is even better than what's been proposed in this report. Anything more than that, I really do believe that we should wait for a briefing or an update on our play space strategy. I just don't think we should be doing anything more than that tonight. Bring back something to the next meeting when we have more to go on. But right here on the fly, I think 50,000 is a really good start. And I know, because I can see the council officer's brain already churning with this idea, I know that there may be other opportunities in the budget to pull more money, and I'll look forward to seeing that in another briefing. But I just don't want to rush through and disappoint other members of the community who are politely waiting in line for the things that have been budgeted for their areas as well. I think doing it this way, we could get a good outcome, and we could just do it by following the process.
Thank you. Any further debate on the amendment? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, well, look, just on the matter, I'd say to Councillor Crasso, it's not policy on the fly. It's called thinking on your feet, really. I mean, the numbers are here. I've read them. The $20,000 that I have observed has been in this report, right? And you know, that's $20,000 means that we could do both parks, and we can find a way to fund, you know, to do a bigger project at Will Park. I mean, obviously this is getting a loss. I want to see both parks get done. I want to see 150,000 spent or whatever it is on Will Park, so we can get that scooter track around it. I know how popular that would be. And honestly, we could have found a way tonight to do both parks in both areas. And it's just disappointing that, yeah, it's really, of all the places that we find funding from a park, is it that heartless that we have to take it from another park when there's so many places we could get this funding? This park, this upgrade that was scheduled in at Harding Memorial, it was scheduled in the budget for a reason. It was put in there because it's due for an upgrade. And now saying, well, it doesn't need as much of an upgrade as another park. Well, okay, that's fine. Doesn't mean you rip the funding away and say that it's not going to happen. You find a way to do both. There's money in the bank. It can be done. I know that there's a budgetary process where we have to find funding from other areas, and I just did it. Now, you give me another 15 minutes and I'll find the rest of the 100 grand that's not spent on wasteful things. So, you know, don't support the amendment to my original motion, which would fund both parks. I would like to see both parks done.
Any further debate? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I strongly support Councillor Crassoy's idea on this. I would be absolutely opposed to removing any money from the Croquet Club at this early point in time. If the $20,000 is available and it's not being used, it's fine for it to go there. $50,000 would be, I'm sure, do a lot more good at Wheels Park than the 30 originally proposed. And from what I've seen, yes, it could well and truly deal with it, which accords with the what we've heard tonight from our presenters. So thanks to them, very happy to support the $50,000 that Councillor Crassoy proposes.
Any further debate? Right of reply, Councillor Crassoy.
Thanks, Mayor Williams. I agree that there will be other areas that some funding can come from, and I agree that these times have changed, and that as councillors we need to be open to pulling money from other places. I believe that's the job of the General Manager and the staff to really help us with that decision. I don't think we should be doing it on our laptops in a council meeting. We could do it together at a briefing, it's always better when we work cooperatively and productively together around the table and make suggestions. but I would rather do that with the appropriate council officers at the table at the same time, helping us understand why maybe it should come from here, maybe it shouldn't come from there. Yeah, maybe the croquet kitchen doesn't need it and maybe it could come from there, and that is probably a really good idea, I agree, but I don't want to take that decision without understanding some of the other recommendations. I'm not saying that that Harding Memorial won't get done. I'm just suggesting that for now, Wheel Park does need it more. I know Harding Memorial Park. I walk through there often, and I agree with the council officer's recommendation that it is okay for a couple of years longer, or a little while longer. But if in the meantime, as part of the play strategy reporting update, we find out there is more money nearby, then of course we can do it sooner than, and we're able to. And if the people at Boronia Park say, hang on a minute, I heard you're putting in a pump track at Wheel Park, we want ours, we've been waiting longer, they're perfectly entitled to do that. And how we make these decisions well and responsibly is by having all of that information in front of us. And I'm sure that the residents who use Wheel Park more would hate to think that we're pulling money from other people in the community who equally deserve money to be spent in their areas. The council officer has identified that Harding Memorial Park, the council officer who is an expert in this field has identified that Harding Memorial is okay for now. When I first moved to Hunters Hill, I went to a lot of sausage sizzles and barbecues and skateboarding days and events run by residents to raise money for some of the last tranche of playgrounds upgrades and towards the skate park. And they were championed by residents who were really enthusiastic about supporting their local council to raise the money to get more projects underway. And residents are happy to spend money in their local community to support each other and to support their children. So the residents who've raised Wheel Park, we're really grateful and it's welcome. I think $50,000 is a great start, and there's lots of opportunities here. I just don't think that we need to make these decisions tonight. I'm not saying it won't be made. I'm not saying Harding Memorial won't be done. I'm just saying that we need to work with our council who are doing the operational side of things. That's our job. I just, you know, this could be a really good thing. It doesn't have to turn into an ugly debate, and no one has to lose. So let's start with 50 grand and keep moving. It's a great thing.
That closes debate on the amendment. I now put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Collins and Miles are against. I declare that carried. That now becomes the motion. Is there any further debate? Councillor Miles?
Oh, just to say, it would be my strong preference, and reflecting on some of Councillor Crassoy's comments, it would be my strong preference to do both. And I think that I would like for it to be revisited, that Harding Memorial Play Space be revisited before, the end of 4 years. My preference was to do both, and Councillor Collins had identified some ways that we could do that. Might ask a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the relevant director. In the play space strategy, have we identified any of the of those initiatives that Mrs. Oakman has raised? Because there were some brilliant ideas sort of thrown around there. Have we identified any of those? Is there a way that we could incorporate that into the play space strategy? Because I think that's worthwhile noting them.
Mr. Acting General Manager, I'm also mindful that we've just done a plan of management, or does that fit under the generic plan of management?
Ms. Hay, you answer.
It's generic, so Wheel Park's okay.
Right, so we can do that sort of stuff. Okay.
It's upgrade to existing use.
But the pump track isn't. But anyway, the question, Councillor Miles, sorry, I've lost this. Sorry,
the question would be through you to Beck. is there any way that we could incorporate those ideas into that into the play space strategy, or is that something we can just do as a matter of course?
Play space strategy is due for upgrade in 2024, so it's not too much further to go. Part of the strategy was to engage with the community in the design, so full consultation with both the kids and the families that will be using the playground. So we definitely, case by case, work with the community surrounding that area to design the play space like we have done at Riverglade.
So if we do end up finding a bit more dough for Wheel Park, we can take into account some of those specific initiatives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So we can definitely work with the community to develop a design, being mindful of the available budget, but also if there are future stages, as I believe one of the councillors mentioned earlier, we can stage additions, say a pump track or something like that into the future.
Good.
Okay. Any further debate? Right of reply? Nope. Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Councillor Collins, was that against?
Yes, I'm against it.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Collins against, everybody else for. So that's carried. That concludes that item. Now we can go back to the other item. Thank you very much, speakers, Mrs. Oakman, and the presentation on the other person, Mrs. Browning. So if we go back to wherever we were, sorry, I've just
3.6.
Yeah, I know, but there it is. 3 point. Did we deal with 3.5?
We did, yes.
Mr. Acting General Manager, was that concluded?
Yes, we did dealt with 3.5 and now doing 3.6.
3.6. Thank you very much.
Okay.
No, well, we haven't actually really started 3.6 because we're still dealing with the
point of order.
Point of order.
Oh,
yep. So, in relation to that, under what is it?
Section
clause 15.12. As a chairperson, I'm entitled to require you to apologise, withdraw, or retract and apologise. If you don't obey with that, I'm then authorised under clause 15.14 to expel you from the meeting.
Well,
sorry?
I will speak to what you've just said.
No, it's not a matter of debate. It's a matter of a ruling by the chair. You either accept that ruling and withdraw your comments, or the option for me is to expel you from the meeting.
Okay, please read back the words that I said.
Mr. Mayor, just 15.8, you just have a look at that clause as well.
15.8. Councillor can be, without notice, move to dissent from a ruling. So yes, you can dissent from that ruling, and then the councillors can decide as to whether or not my ruling is reasonable.
Well, Mayor, I will say to that, I do dissent, but before I do,
no, you have to move it. No, you have to move a motion of dissent.
I have a question, Mayor. Can you please read back to me the words that I said that you had issue with?
No, I can't read back the exact words, but the person that moved the point of order was unhappy with the reference you made or the assertions that you made.
Well, it was a while ago. I'd like it read back to me so I know what
we can't read it back. Would you like to?
How can I know what I'm apologising for, man?
Well, it was Councillor Crasso, you moved the point of order. Would you like to reaffirm that, please, so that Councillor Collins can understand?
Exact words, please.
Councillor Crasso, are you able to provide that direction for us as to what the words?
No, Councillor Collins asked for the exact words.
No, you don't have to give the exact words. Could you please give the?
Pretty sure you do, Matt.
No,
if you have an issue with something I said, you need to tell me what it is I said.
Now that
the Councillor Crasso, could you please tell me the intent of the dissent?
Intent's something I decide. You can't decide what my intent was.
Oh, look, Councillor Collins, please. You're just disrupting the meeting.
It's
We can move on anytime you want, Mayor.
No, we can't, because there is a motion of point of order, or a point of order raised by a councillor, which I believe is legitimate. And I've just asked Councillor Crasso if she'd like to restate that for us. And then it's up to you, Councillor Collins, as to how you want to deal with it. But we are wasting a lot of council's
Absolutely,
time.
we are.
Yes. Councillor Crasso, do you wish to make a comment?
No, I wish I hadn't said anything in the first place. I had gotten used to, over the last 4 years, being constantly harangued by Councillor Collins in council meetings, and I just snapped. And I do apologise, and I did withdraw my comment about deranged paranoia. But my point of order was about Councillor Collins suggesting that some of his fellow, actually the rest of his fellow councillors, had a pattern of voting against him. And then a little bit after that, he said voting as a block. But I can't repeat it in exact words. I'll be able to tomorrow when I watch the replay. That was my point of order, Mr. Mayor. And you know what? I shouldn't have raised it, because I am quite used to such silly accusations happening all the time. It's tedious. Well, and I just snapped. And I did apologise on my part.
Well, the way forward would be to withdraw the point of order, and we can all move forward. You happy with that?
I'll withdraw the point of order and never complain about Councillor Collins again.
Thank you. All right. So the motion to address the maintenance backlog, this is something that I brought back a couple of years ago. And what this basically says is that over the next 10 years, when we make a provision in our budgets to maintain our assets and budget everything over 10 years, is that everything's included. So if we have a backlog in our assets, then everything should be included. Now, if we'd have adopted this motion 2 years ago when I first brought it, then we'd be 2 years into this, and we'd be 20% of the way to bringing back all of our assets up to a satisfactory standard. Now, anybody that's suggesting that we are close to having everything up to a satisfactory standard can now get onto the website, huntershill.newsouthwales.gov.au/footpath-network, and can see the 20-metre interval ratings of all footpaths in Hunters Hill. Now, we have a tremendous amount of work to do over the next 10 years, hopefully over a shorter period. And by putting out budgets that don't include doing everything is simply misleading the community about the state of our operations. It is misleading, and it doesn't paint a true picture of our financial situation. If we included everything in that we should do, and I'm not saying make it as a gold standard at an excellent level, but just to a satisfactory level. If we included everything in our 10-year forward estimates to bring everything up to a satisfactory level, we'd have a very significantly different financial position. This is about budget honesty. This is about getting everything done that we need to do, and basically not trying to make the budget look good by leaving off maintenance or asset restoration. That's what this council's been doing for decades. And now we're in this position where we have this backlog, which is in the tens of millions of dollars. And anyone that wants to pull me up on that number, welcome to. I can absolutely defend that. And I'm saying that we put it into the budget. That's all. So I commend the motion.
Is there any debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. We now move to item 4.2, which is draft state environmental planning policy housing. And there's a motion there, or recommendation to receive a note. Is there a mover? Councillor Collins, Councillor Miles, is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin. Any discussion? Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Miles, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I'll take right of reply, but as it is a receive and note, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Councillor Sanderson?
If I could, Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a question through you to the Director. I've taken some time to read this report in detail, and there are some aspects that concern me that, I mean, I know we're well covered in terms of protection from items like flat buildings because they're too far away from a station. We're also pretty well protected in our zone 2B. Are you able to give us a bit of a summary of any concerns you may have where we might end up worse off in Hunters Hill than we are under the existing SEPs that this SEP will replace?
Mr. Acting General Manager, can you assist?
Through you, Mayor. It's basically the proposed housing SEP is consolidating 5 of the other SEPs, which is the affordable rental housing, senior SEP, affordable housing, and also the caravans and manufacturing of homes. In the report, we've reviewed it in detail, and in the report, we highlight that, like you said, there won't be minimal impact on these amendments. Boarding houses will be no longer mandated in the R2 residential zones, and any boarding houses approved must be affordable in perpetuity managed by the community housing provider. Also, Hunters Hill is unlikely to see any co-living housing as anticipated in other areas and high medium densities. And the other important part that we were focusing on and also monitoring is the moratorium on seniors housing in heritage conservation areas, which has now been extended the 1st of July 2022. Council will be on top of that with regard to providing justification of that moratorium. We've also written to the department about that. It's in our housing strategy, and also in all our other statements as well. So they're the 3 main ones. The rest are basically affecting other councils with regard to the type of housing that they have. But the report highlights as well the issues about the changes as well.
Councillor Miles, you have a question? Or
Sorry, yeah, just through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. Is there any timings around the adoption of this? So it's in draft, and it will presumably it's been tabled in Parliament. So what would do you know when this will come into effect?
Mr. Acting General Manager, could you assist?
Director, you're on mute, Director.
Mr. Karupis, yeah, thank you.
Through you, Mayor. The exhibition period ends in September. What we're hearing, we anticipate that this goes through end of the year, December period.
Thank you. Right, we've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that unanimous. We now move on to 4.3, which I've declared an interest in. So I'll hand the chair over to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sanderson. And could I be placed in the waiting room, please?
On. You're on mute, Councillor Deputy Mayor.
Unusual circumstances to take over. Do we have a mover for item 4.3? Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Crassoy. Is there any debate on this motion or discussion? Thank you. Can I put the motion? Those in favour? Those against? None. Thank you. If we can get the Mayor back in to the meeting.
Good evening. I'm back. Is that matter being dealt with, I assume?
It has been.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We now move to 4.4, which is a report of the annual report of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. As a mover of the recommendation, Councillor Crassoy. Is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin. Any debate?
Just a point of clarification, Mayor, to the General Manager or relevant Director, through you, Mr. Mayor. The report, I believe, has been updated from the Chair. If the Chair asks for clarification to be made.
That's correct, through you, Mr. Mayor. And it's now, the Director might help me, but it's the correct reports on the internet, on the council website now.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so just all right, so I'll just state so it's on the record there. I attended the 4 meetings as the independent member, as a councillor member, and where it says here, I left the meeting held on the 16th of September, 2 p.m, citing governance requirements of the committee did not allow for non-member councillors to be present as observers. As there was no closed agenda items, the independent members were of the view that the committee's charter did not preclude the attending councillor from remaining at the meeting. The correction simply is that I didn't say it was not allowed under the charter. I said it was improper for the audit committee to become some kind of a spectacle where councillors just come in and watch. So I left the meeting because I didn't think it was proper for councillors to attend. I believe that's the day that Councillor Crassoy showed up, and so I left that meeting and indicated to the chair that if councillors were to be present at these meetings as observers, that I would resign, citing the governance concerns. And it's great to see that the Office of Local Government, in their updated charters for the audit committee, will not be encouraging councillor spectators at these meetings. And in fact, there will be no councillor members. And I've always said from the beginning, I don't even think I should have been on the committee. There was supposed to be one councillor member. Yeah, I understand that there's not going to be any, so I won't be a member next time. So anyway, I commend the report, and yeah, that's it.
Okay, does the mover wish to reply? No. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. We now move to item 4.5, which is the minutes of the Conservation Advisory Panel held on the 21st of July to receive and note. Councillor Sanderson moved, Councillor McLaughlin second. Is there any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. That now brings us to the next item on the business paper, which we've dealt with, 4.6. 4.7, report of legal matters, report to be received and noted. Is there a mover to that effect? Councillor Sanderson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Crassoy. Is there any debate? Put the motion. All those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously. We now move to the next item, which is a summary of councillors' investments as of the 31st of July 2021. It's item 4.8. Is there a mover to that? Councillor Miles, Councillor Sanderson seconded it. Any debate? If not, Councillor Collins. Councillor Miles, you wish to speak to your motion? Nope. Councillor Collins.
Just a point of clarification, if I can, from the relevant director through you, Mayor. This T Corp medium-term growth fund seems to be providing the significant bulk of our interest revenue. It's got quite a good return. Is there any plans to increase that?
Mr. Acting General Manager, could you please help?
Through you to the Director.
Yes, we've just this month moved over another 500,000 over to make it to up to 2 million. That's in line with our cash flow requirement of future projects and investment policy. And that is the extent that we're intending to have it at that balance at this point in time.
Okay. Okay, no, that's good. Yeah. All right. No, thank you.
There's no further debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against it, declare it carried unanimously. We now move to 7.1, which is question with notice. Councillor Collins.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we have the answer yet, so it might be. Do we have an answer to this question yet?
I do, councillors. I just need to get it up in my phone. Having only one computer in front of me tonight slowed me down a bit. There we go. I can't read it because I haven't got my glasses on. In relation to the question, council's been on 26% renewable energy since 2016-17 under its existing energy contract. This contract was recently tendered, and based on the rates received, council will be able to move to 100% renewables on the 1st of July next year. So that's a pretty good result.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Acting General Manager. Does that answer the question?
Is that the
SS Rock?
Okay. I'm not sure if I could. Okay. Good.
Okay. Questions without notice? Yes, Councillor Crassoy. Could you unmute, please? Yep.
Sorry, you slipped to the other screen then. I do have a question without notice. I'd like to read it out if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, yes.
In light of recent announcements from Ausgrid regarding proposed power outages over coming weeks, can Council urgently make contact with Ausgrid, our State Member Anthony Roberts and Minister for Education and Early Childhood and Learning Sarah Mitchell to support our HSC students as they begin their trials this week, already under difficult conditions? I understand that schools have been contacted by Ausgrid and told that there will be local outages in the Hunters Hill area in this coming week while children are trying to sit their trial exams at home. Students and parents are really stressed about this. I'm not certain what can be done, but I do feel that as a council with 5 local high schools in our area, we need to possibly do something to try and reach out and let those students know that we're here to support them, or come up with ways to support them. I don't know how. Run mini generators throughout the suburb. I just don't know. But it's my question without notice, and it's an urgent one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, okay. I'll talk to the General Manager tomorrow. Yes, Councillor.
I might be able to provide some information around that as a parent of somebody who is sitting online trials at the moment. Matt Keane has put out a statement today which says that Year 12 students impacted by lockdowns are already doing it tough. If the planned outage coincides with one of your son's tasks, he advises that you contact their network business and discuss the time power is required to complete the trial exam. I'm not sure how useful that is. So I would encourage council to try and assist these kids as much as possible.
Thank you. Is there any further questions? If not, thank you very much. I declare the meeting closed at 8:33, and our next scheduled meeting is in September. So thank you for your attendance, and stay